Welcome back to our series, Raise Your Voice, Succeeding Through Self-Advocacy. In this segment, we will be focusing on housing and your rights as a person with a disability. We will look at your rights in the rental, sales, and financing of housing. Housing is fundamental, especially for people with disabilities who've historically faced segregation such as institutionalization. While the 1990 Americans with Disability Act improved accessibility, the Fair Housing Act specifically protects disability status, prohibiting discrimination in housing dealings. This act, overseen by HUD and the Department of Justice, distinguishes between reasonable accommodations, or rule and policy changes, and reasonable modifications, or alterations to the physical environment. Notably, homeowners bear the cost of physical changes, while any costs linked to accommodations typically fall to the homeowners association.
I think when I first started looking, I had it in my mind that, I could just search for, handicap accessible housing and just, find all those options. Well, you're not going to find a lot of options. They do actually on those rental websites, they do have that as a filter where you can click handicap accessible or stuff like that. But handicap accessible as a general term, the way society defines it and the way that these businesses are required to define what is handicap accessible is usually a very minimal requirement.
When I was looking for an apartment to move into here in Des Moines, I did find one that, was reasonably priced, was accessible for the most part, except when, we went in to look at the unit, the doorway into the bathroom was pretty narrow. And ultimately we decided that that wouldn't work. We think, and even when I went into the search of looking for accessible apartments, we think that it's as easy as typing in accessible apartment, Des Moines, Iowa. But it's much more complex than that because the specific needs that you have are going to be ultimately very different from what a building has decided is accessible versus not accessible.
Whether you're looking for a place to rent or to purchase a place to live, there are some questions you should ask. Is there adequate means for transportation? Do you have ready access to grocery stores or other shops? What supports, like physicians, attendant care, or supplies, are available in your area? Now let's assume that you're interested in renting. Here are some questions you might consider asking a property owner before renting an apartment or a house. Are the property, unit, and community accessible? Are there features in the apartment or home that would need to be altered for access? Would the rental company accommodate and cover the costs of any necessary alterations?
You're going to have to make phone calls to see if a place is actually going to be able to meet your needs, as well as, going obviously to see in person, because some of those things like the doorway, you don't really know unless you know the specific measurements before you commit to moving into an apartment, before you sign the lease, before you put down a deposit. Really demand that you're able to see that specific unit, whether that is in person, which of course would be ideal, or if there are certain rules and regulations that they can't show you the unit in person, that is something that I've ran into, then demand that they show you a video recording of it.
Let's take a closer look at two other important things to consider: emergency preparedness and service animals. Upon moving into a new location, you should promptly inform the fire department of your floor and any required evacuation assistance you might need. If residing on the second floor or above, it's essential to devise a safety plan for power outages during events like tornadoes, considering the potential inoperability of elevators. Additionally, the presence or feasibility of installing a backup generator should be explored, especially for those reliant on energy-dependent medical equipment. The Americans with Disabilities Act specifically recognizes dogs and miniature horses as animals that perform tasks related to an individual's disability for public accommodations. Yes, you heard me right. miniature horses. In contrast, the Fair Housing Act encompasses a wider variety of assistance animals, including emotional support animals, which aren't considered pets and are exempt from pet deposits and breed weight limitations. Property owners and homeowners associations could face significant financial penalties for violations of the Fair Housing Act.
I, at one point, was going down the path of looking at having a house built. That is difficult because if you go into a subdivision community where they have those built, pre-built plans, I found that initial experience with talking to the construction or the builders about modifying the plans for accessibility, because to me, it would have been ideal to have a house built that I could build to my requirements. But they are very resistant to change their plans, even for accessibility.
As a person with a disability, you're safeguarded in home purchasing and financing processes. The Fair Housing Act ensures non-discrimination in housing sales and, along with the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, in lending. Federally supported programs like down payment assistance fall under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, preventing mortgage lenders from discriminating due to disability. As we explore financial assistance for individuals with disabilities, let's break down the available options. First, on the federal front, there's the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which many know as Section 8. This program is backed by federal funding providing rent subsidies with the flexibility to transfer these vouchers. Another federal initiative is Section 811, granting funds to nonprofits and state agencies to create housing solutions for those with low income and disabilities. Every state offers down payment assistance with multiple eligibility categories. It's always a good idea to consult with your state's housing finance agency to navigate the options.
I was able to find a one-level home that met most of my requirements and very low one step to get in, so very little modification for the entries. But I will say, since I've been in, obviously the home wasn't modified. I have had my bathroom remodeled to a fully handicap accessible bathroom. Obviously, I didn't have just the money to do that on my own. I found a organization that gave that you apply for grant funding or for a fund from them. I was awarded that fund. They gave me $10,000 to contribute towards my bathroom remodel, and then I borrowed the rest and did a small short-term loan, and that was what enabled me to get my bathroom done.
In closing, communicate clearly with all housing providers about your needs. Document all interactions, and if your rights are violated, seek legal help. Being proactive, persistent, and informed will guide you to the right housing while protecting your rights. For more information, be sure to download the resources for this video series.